here's the big question. You're interested in value investing and valuing and evaluating businesses on a deep level, but you don't know how, even after researching for hours, probably dozens of hours, hundreds of hours on the internet, and because nobody else shows you how to do it. This podcast has all those answers and much more about value investing in finance. My name is Jason Rivera. Welcome to Value Investing in Your Car. Hey, Jason here. Today's episode of Value Investing in Your Car, we're going to do a real world case study of essentially how to value any business that you come across. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that and kind of from real world experience that me and my wife did over the weekend. Before I get to that, I need to let you know this podcast is available anywhere in the world for free on all major podcasting platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Anchor, and more. It's available as a podcast anywhere in the world for free. Okay, so my wife and I, part of my Valentine's gift from my wife was well, let me back up. There were two things my wife got me as gifts for Valentine's Day. I'll talk about another one tomorrow and how I 106x my return on my investment in this past weekend. Another thing we did was we went on I think it's called Starlight Cruises. It's a dinner cruise. You go on a boat or you go on a ship, a small ship. We live in the Tampa Bay area. We went out of Clearwater, Florida, which is about an hour drive from my house. And you go on there and there's dancing and there's music and there's food. And you take a ride around the Gulf for a little bit and around some beautiful houses, $3.5 million houses and stuff like that. And you get great scenery and it's at night and you see all the lights and it's beautiful. That was awesome, of course. But, of course, being a business nerd, I automatically was thinking, I was like, is this a profitable business? Seems like there's a lot of people on here. Let's kind of do an analysis. So we're going to do that live. I haven't done this analysis. I just got some basic information from my personal experience there. And also I asked one of the waiters how many people the ship fills. So here's how we're going to do it live right here. I'm going to show you, or not live, you're watching this video, but I'm going to do it live right here for you and show you how with minimal information, you can value pretty much any business or get an estimate of value for pretty much any business in the world. Again, barring insurance companies, financials, all that kind of stuff. Most normal companies, you can, with minimal information, you can value the business. So this business, again, cruise ship, kind of, it's more, I think of it as kind of a restaurant. It's a floating restaurant with music and dancing. It's systematized incredibly. They offered, I think, 8 entrees, 4 appetizers, 8 entrees, and then you get a salad that's the same along the whole thing for everybody. You get a cheesecake if you want a cheesecake at the end. That's included in the cost of the entree. You pay to get on the boat, and essentially you just sit there and do whatever you want. You can go on the deck and look at the lights. You can chat with whoever you're there with, whatever. So it's $25 a person to get on the ship. So, and 300 people fit on the ship. So let's say there are, on any given night, I'm assuming they do it once a night, maybe twice a night in the summer, but let's go once a night for simplicity's sake. I'm going to bring up a Word doc here. Okay. And a lot of these are going to be assumptions because, of course, I've not seen their financial statements, but they're going to be based on my previous experience evaluating businesses, business models of all kinds. Specifically, again, I treat this kind of like a restaurant, and I know what their kind of margins are. But we're going to go through this one by one. So let's say there are $50 or $25 per person. Let's say 280 people show up. So 25 times 280. That accounts for some people no showing or changing plans or just not reserving every night. So let's get my calculator. So just to get on the ship, that's $7,000. in revenue that the company earned. Okay, so dinner, we got some drinks and an appetizer, which was extra, and we got some of the more expensive meals because we don't do that kind of thing pretty much ever. So we got a little bit more expensive meals. So let's say on average, a person spends or a couple spends $100. So if it's a couple, that's times 140, correct? That's $14,000 from. Okay. Okay, so that means every day the business does $21,000 in revenue every day. Okay, so every day of the year. And in Florida, I mean, let's assume I live in Florida. I've lived in this area for 4 years now, or almost 5 years now. So let's assume that minus holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, although 4th of July would be really cool on the bay doing something like this, or in the Gulf doing something like this because you can see all the fireworks. So, but let's assume that holidays, bad weather, hurricanes, choppy waves, whatever. It's about 330 days. That's 6,930 in revenue every year. So this gives us a decent estimate of revenue. Obviously, if more people show up, that would mean higher revenue. If people spend less, that would be lower revenue, and the inverse of this is true. We're just trying to get an estimate here. So that's about just under $7 million in revenue every year. So part of these costs, let's go backwards now. Minus, let's say 15% for tips. Or no, let's start up front. So their upfront cost, this probably covers stuff like gas. This is probably mostly unprofitable right here. This probably covers cost of gas, maintenance, crew, stuff like that. So let's say 6,000. Oops. Okay. So this 7,000 minus 5,500 is 1,500. Okay. So that gives us 15 per day in profit on upfront. Just to get on the boat. Okay, obviously I didn't see their back end. I don't know how many cooks they have. I don't know how many people they have driving the ship. I don't know how many crew members, but I'm just basing this on my estimate of what I saw. That is probably a fair estimate. Obviously, this doesn't count waiters' tips, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'm talking about the crew. I only saw one crew member who was walking around. He looked like he was the captain. He was wearing the uniform. I think there were 2 people driving the boat. So that's 3. And I'm assuming there were people doing the cooks and stuff like that. So I'm assuming this covers all of that and gas and stuff like that. So let's say 15, let's go even higher just for conservatism's sake. So on the 14,000, let's say 20%. Goes to tips. Okay, so for 40 minus, so that's 11,200 per day in profit. Now, I know this number is way too high because, again, I've evaluated a lot of restaurants in the past. So, and this is a restaurant. So let's cut this number in half because restaurants have a huge amount of costs. They have food costs, they have cooks, they have the shipping costs for the food, all that kind of stuff. So divided by 2 equals food preparation, shipping, etc. Food related cost. Okay, so this has already cut our profit margin from 14,000 per day, or our profit from our revenue from $14,000 per day in this section to $5,600 per day. So that's a decrease of, that's 40% on this side of things. Again, that would probably put us at about a per day, about a 50% margin. That's way too high. Again, we're going to assume that this doesn't pay for cooks and stuff like that to cook for 300 people. This doesn't either. This is the food cost. This number right here is just after tips. So the waiter's fees right here. This is for food prep and the food and the shipping of the food and stuff like that. What about the cooks? Equals 28. Let's say this counts the DJ too. So we have $2,800 per day in total profit. I think this is probably still high, but again, I don't have any idea. I haven't seen the books for this company, but I would assume based on how it operates that they probably have higher margins than normal restaurant companies because of how systematized everything is and how they literally do this every single day, the same thing every day. There's not changes in the menus unless they add something new. There's not changes in their food costs unless food costs go up, stuff like that, which again, I know fluctuates, but we're just trying to get an estimate here. We're not trying to get the exact number. So 20 profit per day from food side of business plus, what was it, $1,500? $1,500 per day in profit from upfront cost to get on a boat equals say, so $4,300 in total profit from an original 23,000. So 43 or 21,000, sorry. Oops. That's a 20% profit margin. That's a very good profit. 20.5% profit margin, which is excellent for a restaurant. Restaurants have insanely small margins. So I assume this is probably still high. But again, unless I look at the company's books, I wouldn't know for sure what their costs are. But this is probably a pretty good estimate based on my experience and my knowledge of restaurants and previous investing experience. So what is that times so that would equal $924,000 in profit per year on revenue of just under 7 million. So let's see what that is in total. 924. 6. So that's a 13% total profit margin. This is probably still a little bit high, but it's very close. I can guarantee it's probably very close to the profit margin. So that's how you can value an entire business, any regular business with minimal information. This was based off me and my wife's ticket price. This I got based off of, I asked the waiter how many people the boat fits, and this was the upfront cost just to get on the boat. That's all the information that I got from this. And a 13% profit margin business, especially for a restaurant, is fantastic. I look for companies with profit margins over 10% on a consistent basis, and most restaurant companies have margins below 5% on a consistent basis. So for a restaurant, again, this is different, but it's very similar. That's how I would kind of classify it. This is a very good profitable business by my estimates. But this is just one side of their business. They also do a day cruise as well, which again doubles the cost, doubles probably. I don't know if the cost would be as high because it's during the day. To my understanding, it's mostly a party boat type of thing, so mostly just alcohol. I don't know if there's probably appetizers and snacks and stuff. So the cost would probably be lower on that, or the expenses would probably be lower on that. But that would pretty essentially double revenue to just under 14 million, and profitability would probably be just under like 1.7, 1.8 million, somewhere around there, depending, again, maybe as high as 2 million, depending on how much food and stuff is produced for the party boat. So during the day. So they run this, to my understanding, 2 times a day. One is the afternoon is a party boat type of thing where people are drinking and just kind of traveling around the Gulf of Mexico. The other one is dinner, and there's definitely more cost for higher end food. And it was pretty high in food for the restaurant side of the business. But that, again, will give you an estimate. They earn probably between $1.5 and $2 million per year in profit total, and around $14 million in revenue. $14 to $15 million in revenue every year from these 2 boats. So how would I value this business? So 16 million. I would value this business between 12 and $16 million based on these estimates. Now you could go even further with this and say for example, how could they increase revenue? You can't really decrease costs because you're dealing with food and perishable stuff and alcohol that has fixed prices and stuff like that. So you can't really decrease prices too much probably in this business. Fixed costs like gas, maintenance, that's stuff you pretty much all have to take care of. But how could you increase revenue? If you can't raise prices, but you want to increase your profit margin, how can you increase your revenue? By raising prices, especially on something like drinks. If they raise prices, let's say 35 cents per drink, even, that would drop straight to their bottom line and add, I don't even have a way to guesstimate that. Let's see. Average drink was probably $7 per drink increased to per drink. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to do a lot of work to do that, but I'm showing you what you could do. You could even, and this would drop straight to the bottom line. So let's say half the people, 35 times, get a drink. That's an extra $1,000. Or, sorry, 7 times 140. Extra. It doesn't really increase. It's by about $100. So that wouldn't do it by itself. One thing you could do, raise this by $5 per ticket. That probably wouldn't drive customer base down too much. There's several things you could do here to increase the revenue and increase the profitability of this business. Could you do it too much? Probably not, because again, there's other competition out there. There's a lot of competition just out in that same area. There was, I think, 2 or 3 others that did a similar thing to them. So you couldn't raise prices a ton here or on drinks, which is here. But if you could, that would drop straight to the bottom line profitability and increase the value of the company. So this is a super nerdy way of how I think about things, and how if I go into a business, like trying to think of how things could work, how things could improve, what the profitability margins are, what the value of this potential business is. This is the nerdy stuff I think about when I'm out with my wife and kids or friends or whatever. It just happens. But this shows you the power of knowing what you're doing when it comes to value investing, because with essentially 3 things of information, 4 things if you include the party boat thing, 4 things, you could value or get a decent estimate of what this business is worth. You could see how much revenue they're doing, get an estimate of profits, and get an estimate of potential value. And actually, I just remembered something. So let's go back. So I would actually, this is the multiple I use for most private companies or most public companies. Oops. Most private companies, which this is, has a lower multiple. So that would change the valuation from $6 to $8 million. So about half the valuation, which is, of course, is very important, and you need to know that. So private businesses are valued at lower multiples than public businesses. So I would actually value this company between $6 and $8 million per year. If they could increase their profit margin, increase revenues, or both, this would go up. But if you have a business that creates $1.5 to $2 million a year in profit, you're running a pretty good business. If you're running a business that has a 13% profit margin, you're running a pretty good business. Is it going to grow into something huge? No. But could you reinvest this into taking out your competitors? There are 2 or 3 other competitors out there by themselves. They could double, triple, potentially their revenue right there. They could go into Tampa and St. Pete, which are Clearwater to Tampa is about 20 to 30 minutes, and St. Pete is probably about 15 to 20 minutes. Both of those places have these similar things. So if you are running your business well and you want to grow, can't really raise prices, can't really cut costs very much, you could use this money to invest and take out your other competitors, to buy their businesses, stuff like that. If you have profits and you create regular profits, you have options. It gives you options on what you can and can't do when it comes to operating your business. Essentially, if you have profits, you can grow as big as you want. Now, yes, this is barring tech companies who issue a ton of stock and can find investors. Those companies like Uber and Amazon to some degree, and Tesla to some degree, yes, but those are public companies. Remember, this is a private business. If your private business does not earn money, you're in trouble, because you can't raise stock, or you can't issue stock most of the time unless you find more investors. You can't issue a ton of debt because you don't have the added kind of benefit of having the ability to issue stock or sell stock or give the company convertible debt or whatever, or to give the bank convertible debt. So you have fewer options to finance and raise capital if you're a private company. But if you have a profitable business, you can use that to gain leverage and gain So the ability to buy competitors, to buy debt, or to raise debt. They probably wouldn't want to raise equity, but they could raise debt here to purchase another company or another set of companies. They could take over the entire Tampa Bay area cruise, dinner boat, party boat, hospitality industry if they really wanted to. Again, they probably don't know anything about this, which is fine. They're probably happy with their business, again, which is fine. But this is kind of the stuff you can do with minimal information. You could take it to several different levels of analysis and thinking and competitive strategy and all that. So I hope you found this interesting. Um, the food was awesome. Time with my wife was awesome. But again, this is this is the kind of stuff I drift off and think about when I'm doing really anything. So I hope you found this interesting. Hope you found the ability to value businesses with minimal information interesting. Hardly anybody talks about that. So I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your comments in the comment section below. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, love, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're notified anytime we release a new video. Sorry. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. And like, love, share, comment, subscribe, retweet, all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Talk soon.